Yeah, that's fine. Opportunity called me. I pick up the phone and we just so much alike. And like he said, we're born on the same day. He's a lot older than me, but we won't get into that. But I just want to, I really appreciate you, Wesley, when we talked in Salt Lake. One of the things he said, man, whenever you come to Hawaii, you know, you got an open invitation. I said, well, don't tell me that because you told me I got a place to lay down, so that give me more reason to come. I don't have to pay for a hotel room. He invited me. I say, you might have to tell me to stop coming to Hawaii. But, like he said, I'm a real big mental health advocate, and a lot of things that I do, it's a lot of mistakes that I made in my life. It is Mental Health Month. One of the things I do right now, I run an organization called Beyond the Hardwood. And the reason being is because I like to reach out to our youth and really talk to them about not trying to be a part of that 1%, being in the NBA. It's been less than 5,000 NBA players that ever put on a uniform. And it's a lot of times these kids grow up and just trying to be a part of that 1% when there's other opportunities in the world. So I used, my organization to educate them and let them know if you're a guy like, my man Wesley over here that loves basketball, I give them, ways to be able to research things that surround the game of basketball that you can really look into that, the percentages are better than the 1%. And also, I go talk to rookies through fourth year guys about financial literacy is one of the things I like to do. So to make a long story short, because I want to keep a lot of your time, everything that I do in this life is things that I made mistakes in. And it's so easy for me to get out and talk about it because I know it's always helping somebody. And I'm big on helping people, and it was a long time in my life I didn't know my purpose. And God have his ways of sitting you down and kind of figure things out. But when I retired from basketball in 2015, I went through like a deep depression because I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I've been playing basketball since I can remember. That's all I ever known was playing basketball. So when it came to an end in 2015, I went into a place where I had no clue on what was I going to do, and I turned to alcohol. I was drinking every single day. For 3 years, it was 3 years before I knew it because I didn't want to face the fact that I had to find something else to do. That was hard for me. Every morning I got up, I'm trying to figure out what am I going to do. I left the University of Georgia after 2 years. I didn't have a degree. I knew I didn't want to coach in the NBA. And the reason being because I've, been one of those players that I see how millions of dollars talk to other coaches. So I didn't want to be able to be in that space, and I'm always big on not putting myself in positions I know I can't handle. So, just going through that depression for 3 years, man, the phone rang one day, and one of my good friends told me, like, listen here, Jermaine, the NBA is having a transitioning program that's helping the players be able to figure things out. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah, it's a 3-month program. And I said, where is it? He said, it's in New York. Automatically, in my mind, I was thinking, like, New York is pretty expensive. and he was like, and they're paying $40,000 for you to come. And I say, really? Sign me up for that. So it was, that experience was so great for me, but I was still in the space trying to figure out my life, going through that time, man. Those 3 years went by so fast, and I'm one of those people that I'm very upbeat and positive. I try to bring positive energy anywhere I go. At my job, I like to have a positive environment, so I try to be the person to bring that. So that was part of the reason I was, in a space for 3 years where I didn't want to be around anybody because I didn't want to bring anybody else's spirit down. I always like to bring that positive energy, but now I'm the person that really needs the positive energy, but I don't know how to ask. You know, I was in that kind of space. So, you know, to go to the NBA's office, man, I found out that, you know, everybody that's working in the NBA office never played basketball before. You know what I mean? So just to be able to get into that space, and, you know, they had me going into all of these meetings. First of all, they was like, well, do you have your resume together? And I was thinking, like, what is that? I've been playing basketball my whole life, so I didn't really know, like, what was I going to put on my resume? Like, how many teams I played for? I had no clue. So to be able to get into a workspace where I was trying to really figure out, and we was actually going in there from 9 to 5. I had to put on a suit and tie and, like, actually go into meetings all day long to try to figure out how we're going to make the NBA better. And the thing for me, the first day, I was from 9 to 5, I was sitting there looking around like, man, people do this every day. Because I played basketball my entire life. We practiced for 2 hours. Our day is over with. But, you know, just to get into that space, man, and going into the meetings, I found more value in myself that I can go out and help create this league to make it better for the players. I can go out being that I'm in the basketball space. So to be able to go in and get that experience, I was still not comfortable, but I had an idea. I talked with a guy by the name of, I can't remember his name right now. He'd be mad at me. But anyway, Vin Baker is his name. He played with Boston for a while, and he was in there talking with a lot of players that was going through their transition. And one of the things he told me, I asked him, I say, man, how was your transition? He said it was horrible. And I was like, well, how did you get through it? And he was like, man, one of the things I had to realize is that to understand, for us to be a part of a 1%, it's in here. It's in here. See, he said the one thing that I had to understand is that it goes nowhere. We just got to figure out a way how we're going to disperse it other than being on a basketball court. And to me, a light clicked off for me. Like, wow. All I started thinking was like, what do I enjoy doing most? Helping people. And I tried to create a platform by creating Beyond the Hardwood where I can really get out and talk with people, you know, kids about, you know, the percentage and how hard you work. And a lot of people think I'm stern when I talk to kids because I give them the numbers and give them the facts. And I don't do that just to scare them. I just want them to understand how hard you have to work to be able to be a part of a 1%. Because a lot of kids wake up in the morning and just think that they just pop up and make the NBA. And it just doesn't work like that. So I created that space, but I don't want to take too much of this time, so I'm going to just cut to the chase. But after I retired in 2015, I went through that depression, you know, trying to figure out my life, was working for the 76ers youth program, and I came to a space where I still wasn't happy. You know, I went through that 3-year depression. I figured out what I wanted to do. I was working for the youth program, but I still didn't have that fulfillment inside of me, what made me happy. And a lot of times when you're uncomfortable with the place that you're in and not understanding where you want to go, you know, you act out in ways that might not be the best thing for you. And, you know, I found myself acting out in ways that, you know, that's pleasure, but not pleasuring to the man upstairs, if y'all understand where I'm going with that. Just going through that process, it was so much on me, but God finds his ways to kind of sit you down. And I went through a process where I was in jail for 18 months. And if anybody want to talk about that later, we can, so I won't talk about that now. But it was probably the worst time in my life. I'm not the jail person. I dedicated my life to basketball. And to be able to be sentenced to 18 months in jail was like, it was so tough on me because I was trying to understand how was I going to survive in jail for 18 months when I've always tried to live my life in the best way possible. But I always try to see the positive in everything. No matter how bad it is, I always try to find something positive about the time that I was in there. So the time that I got sentenced, all was on my mind was like, man, maybe this is a message where God's just sitting me down and maybe I need to figure out my life and figure out, because being an NBA player and, having everything that you can possibly ask for in life, you kind of move around pretty fast. You know what I mean? Life goes so fast for you, and you're going here, you're going there, and you have no time for yourself because you're so busy moving around, and it's hard to think in that much clutter. So I figured, like, you know what, man, maybe I need to learn something in this process. I started reading more books in those 18 months than I ever read before in my life. And it was self-help books, because I was trying to figure out a way how I can be better. How can I help be a better man? How can I be a better friend? How can I be everything in life I wanted to be better, because I figured it was a time that God wanted to set me down to be still, to try to figure out my life. For the first time in my life, and it was depressing, being in jail for 18 months. It was so many times that I was actually in jail watching television, and it was a guy that was on the news for doing something. I won't mention why he was there. And I look over next to me, and it's the guy. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, why am I in here with this guy? You know what I mean? Like, it was so, like, humbling, to say the least. It was very humbling for me, and it was just like, and he was like, well, man, you think I'm gonna be okay in here? I say, man, this is my first time being here, but if anybody asks what you did, just tell them you don't know. But, to get in there and, get into that space, I found myself doing a lot of mentoring, because a lot of times you get in the space, because when I went in there, I thought everybody was guilty. I knew I wasn't. So it gave me a whole different perspective on, people that was going to jail. And to be able to listen to perspectives, and I was just in there, just want to help everybody that wanted to have a conversation with me, because I'm very honest and I'm very vulnerable about helping people. So the 18 months that I was in there, I was creating everything that I could possibly do. So when I got out, I figured I'm gonna help as many people as I can, because I knew the transition that I went through in sports. I wanted to help any professional athlete that was going through that transition. So to make a long story short, the 18 months I went in there, and I finally get out, and it's a pandemic. So I get out of jail to get in jail. So to get through that process, man, it was so tough on me. It was a lot that I went through throughout my depression. It was hard. It was hard for me, but I didn't know how to ask anybody for help. The male ego is something else. You know what I mean? Like, we always feel that we got to do things on our own. And when I figured out that I need to figure out a lot of things about myself that I didn't understand why I was acting out in certain ways, I started going to counseling so I can better myself. And as a man, a lot of times people look at you like, man, something must be wrong with him because he's going to counseling. And I got into a space where I didn't really care about what people thought about me. And it took me a long time to get to that space. I had to go through so much of my life to be able to get to a space where I didn't care what people thought. And I just wanted to better myself and put myself in a space where I could be a better dad, I could be a better friend, I could be a better mentor. And as a man, we're supposed to be able to lead and be able to get out in the community and help others. And that was my thrive, to be able to do that every single day. And yes, I want to go to counseling to better myself. And the best thing that I did about going to counseling is continuing. Because the first thing that they kept asking me is like, how was my childhood? And to myself, I was thinking like, well, I'm not gonna get anything out of this. Like, why do they keep asking me about my childhood? But I'm the person, if I start something, I always want to finish it. I kept going, and the amazing thing about me going to counseling was I found out a lot about myself that I never understood. I'm sitting here going through counseling like I had no clue who I was. I let basketball identify who I was. So when it was no longer there, I was trying to figure out who I was. I was an entertainer. I loved to play basketball. That was the thing that I enjoyed. Going to counseling helped me figure out who I was. I had no clue. A lot of ways that I was acting out in certain ways and I couldn't understand it. Why am I doing this? I don't want to be this person. I don't want to do that. And, you know, just to give a little example of one of the things, I always struggled in relationships. I had 16 aunties and uncles. I had like 3 or 4 aunts that dealt with married men. I grew up watching that. I didn't understand why I struggled so much in relationships until I went to counseling. Me watching my aunts date married men gave me a notion of women where I couldn't trust them. So anytime I felt like I started liking a female, I did something so they wouldn't like me. I wanted to sabotage the relationship because I didn't want to be the person to break us up. I wanted you to leave. And I didn't understand that the reason why I was acting out that way is because of something in my childhood. So one of the things I just want to let you understand that really helped me out is just figuring out who I am. And there's a lot of people out here that don't know who they are. And that's okay. You're never too late. I'm 44 years old, and I'm just getting into a space where I know who I am, and I'm okay with who I am. Going to counseling did so much for me to be able to understand the person I am, to be able to get up here and be vulnerable and talk about a lot of things that I went through in my life. And there's so much more to it, but we don't have enough time for any of that. But I just want to leave you guys with this, and I got this quote from a guy by the name of Will Smith. And I wrote my book. When I was writing my book, I was writing so much down and I was sending it to my sister. I was like, what do you think about this? No, bro, you can't put that in the book. Family's gonna be mad at you. All right, okay, well, I'm gonna write this. I send it to her. No, bro, you can't put that in the book. Family's gonna be mad at you. So I think I'm gonna just stop sending things to my sister. I'm gonna stop sending things to her. And it's funny how things work out because Will Smith put out a book and he had a book signing. I live in Philadelphia and I work for the Sixers youth program right now, one of the jobs that I do. And I went to his book signing and, you know, one of the things he said was that he took his family on a trip somewhere and he told them, everything that I put in this book, this is what I'm gonna do. And if you got a problem with it, let's talk about it now. He put so much in the book that I felt so bad by not opening up because after I read his book, he helped me in a sense where, like, do you know how many people that Will Smith helped just by being open and vulnerable about a lot of things that went on in his life? And I'm actually working on my second book right now, and I'll probably make it about somebody else so the family won't be too mad at me. But it's my truth, and I try to get out and try to be vulnerable and try to help other people because you never know what other people are going through that may need to read some of the things that you're going on. With the platform that I have of being a former professional athlete, you know, for some reason that hits different. I don't know why. But one of the things he said was, when you look in the mirror, a lot of times it's the person that you don't see that gets you in trouble. And it was so deep for me, and I was sitting there thinking, like, man, like that's saying a whole lot without saying much. And the things I just want to leave you with is that find out who you are. Find out who you are, because once you find out who you are, it's easy to fix. But if you're looking in the mirror and you're that person and you can't see it, how can you fix it? So to go through, me being a very, very big mental health advocate, I like to get out and really talk about, a lot of things that I experienced. Get closer to yourself, know who you are, and understand you got to know God. You got to know God in the process. And it's funny, me growing up in Cocoa, Florida, I didn't know God. Church was somewhere I thought we only went for Easter, because that's the only time my family went there. And God put me in a position where I witnessed a murder at 13 years old, and I always think like things happen for a reason. Not sure why I was there that day, but I was able to witness that, and my mom made the best decision of her life to be able to move me with her aunt in a small town called Camilla, Georgia, where we was probably in church like 5-6 times out the week. I would like to over-exaggerate and say 7 days out the week, but I learned about God. And through the process of getting drafted at 19 years old in the NBA and being excited and being able to have more money than I can imagine, I kind of lost the things that got me where I was. And it can happen to anybody, especially a 19-year-old kid trying to figure out life on his own when you got 16 aunts and uncles, half of them dropped out in middle school, and maybe one of them graduated high school. So I'm this 19-year-old kid trying to figure out life on his own in a world full of wolves. The NBA me getting drafted in the NBA was the best day of my life and the worst day of my life. And the reason I say that is because no one could prepare me for the things I was about to face as a 19-year-old kid. Who's here to prepare me for that? I got lost. I got lost in a world where, look at today how social media is taking over parenting our kids. Because they're investing more time in that kind of thing, so now it makes it tough as a parent. So to make a long story short, and I know I'm probably over my time, Wesley, know who you are. Know who you are and know that you got the man upstairs to rely on. Don't lose sight of the power that he has. Thank you guys for having me today.
Hello? Jermaine, I just want to say I am honored to be able to be a part of your journey, to be able to have this friendship. I know God is working. I don't know what the story, how it ends, but I'm just super grateful for the opportunity to be a part of your story. Thank you for your vulnerability, authenticity, and just letting us know a little bit about your life. We're gonna take communion and pray for communion. Really quick, I got a couple of slides. I think you're gonna find them really interesting. So Jermaine had a chance to hang out with Randy Kane and the basketball team that he coaches. That was a lot of fun. We'll go to the next one. We hiked Cocoa Head. We're still sore. And then, before you show the last one, I just want to make it really clear that black brothers do surf. You guys, in the Old Testament, they would have cities of refuge. And these cities of refuge would be a place to go when things got sideways. It was a foreshadowing of the city of refuge that Jesus offers every single one of us. Imagine the map of Oahu and pin drops of every single location where everyone lives here. Those are cities of refuge. These are safe places that people can come to and connect with Jesus. Let us be those cities of refuge. When we take communion, 2 Corinthians 2:15, in this way, he, being Jesus, disarmed the spiritual rulers and authorities. He shamed them by public.
I had previously lived and worked in Germany, and I had, fast forward to 2011, God was working again in my life because he allowed me and my wife to meet. So my wife's originally from Mexico. I'm American, of course. Do you think we met in Germany? No, we met in Spain. So we met in Spain, we started dating in the US, we got engaged in Mexico, and we got married here in 2014. And we've been continuing the journey around the globe. I know people have been asking us, how long are you gonna stay this time? We don't know yet, but we'll be here for a little bit, so don't worry. But it was amazing, and unfortunately when we got married here, Erica's son wasn't able to come with us. But we moved again in 2016, went to Japan, and that was the first time all four of us were actually able to live together as a family unit. I think I had a family picture, actually. Sorry, I didn't show it. No? Okay. Suck it. Oh. So, as you can see, we're a little bit animated. I did this one because we all six have not been in the same place yet. 5 of us have been, but not 6. And I'm gonna have to edit it because now there's gonna be 7. So, but yeah, so it was a great time because to finally be all together as a family, it was something that we were all trying to do, and we were able to finally have that opportunity, and God blessed it tremendously. So. Sorry. Okay, so that's a little bit about me. Now, I also wanted to talk about paying it forward. So paying it forward to me, if you're, I'm sure we've all heard that expression. Basically, as a respondent, when someone does something nice for you, you take the opportunity and do it nice for someone else. And we literally had that opportunity when we moved back here, moving from way across the globe. We didn't have a vehicle. Our vehicle was being shipped, so it took a while. And one day we had met Marlon and Lupita Rice just in service. We're just talking, and Marlon's like, "Hey, you guys need anything? You need any help?" I was like, "No, I mean, we could really use a vehicle." I was just putting it out there. We could use a vehicle. He's like, after we moved into our house, we had an opportunity to do the same thing for a sister who just moved here, so she got to stay with us for a little bit. So paying it forward is something that, it's definitely a good thing. It helps your heart. And I feel like, contribution can be considered the same way, because when we look at it, everyone here has someone paid for them when it comes to reaching out to them, to share the gospel, to be able to plant churches here, so that there's staff and that we can send people out to other places. And I totally see how the trajectory that God placed for me to even come out here to not only get to know him, but even to go to Germany, to Japan, to be a part of the churches there, churches planted there, people making those sacrifices. All that is done, you need the resources. And so for me, a practical way that helps me look at it is an investment. When we as parents, we want our kids to have a good education so they can go out and get jobs, have a great future. When we want to retire, we want to, invest in different things, and that takes money. So in the same way in our spiritual life, we need to make that investment, because frankly, if that didn't happen, none of us would be here if people didn't make the investment in us. And so 2 Corinthians 9, verse 6, and it just says, the point is this: whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. And so God knows our heart and where we're at and what we want to share, but it's more about the heart and what we can give. Because for me, I look and see people that I probably don't even know from the previous generation who sacrificed and gave so that I could, have a relationship with God. And even with our kids, to see the PKM ministry, how they invest in our children so that they can get to know God, and so that we can invest in the next generation to be able to also have that type of relationship with God. And we don't need to know them, but we know that we're investing in God's kingdom, and that's the main point. So that's what I wanted to share, so I'll go ahead and pray for the communion. So thank you. Dear Heavenly God, thank you so much for just the opportunity that we have to be able to give back to your kingdom, which has given so much to all of us, Lord, that we can be able to pay it forward. We can be able to see future generations, our kids, our grandkids, and just people who, like me, moved here out of the blue, that could be able to get to know you, God. And I'm just super grateful that we have this opportunity. I pray that you bless the funds, bless people's heart to want to give what they want to give, and that you will bless it to be able to advance your kingdom. Lord, we love you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. As the trays are passed, let's go ahead and stand it up. We're going to sing one more song. Unto thee, O Lord. Unto do I lift up my soul, oh my God, I trust you, oh my God, I trust in thee. Oh, let me not be ashamed, let not my enemies triumph over me. Teach me thy path, thy ways, O Lord. Teach me thy path, thy ways, O Lord. Oh my God, I trust in thee. Oh, let me not be ashamed, let not my enemies triumph over me.
This morning, so I hope you enjoy. But I'm lucky to be married to my wife and my two beautiful teenagers, Samuel and Hannah. Definitely grateful for my family, and congratulations to all the grads. Okay, so we are actually transitioning into a new series called The Table, Making Room, right? So we'll talk about that a little bit. One of the things that we're going to talk about, the table is basically being about bringing all of us together. And we'll kind of dive into that a little bit. But today we're going to transition, right? And one of the criticisms of Christianity, right, is that Christianity is exclusive, right? Critics say, you Christians say Jesus is the only way, right? That if you don't believe and you don't follow him, that you're not saved. And to the ends of the earth. Just like in Matthew 28, it talks about how he wanted his apostles to go into all nations. Get out here in a timely manner. But in the next, take a quick look at that, just to give us, in Jerusalem is right there, Samaria, and to the ends of the world. That's the world that they knew back then. Okay, so Jesus' ministry primarily focused on reaching the Jews in Jerusalem and Judea. In the Gospels, we see Jesus reaching out to all levels of the Jewish society, right? He reached out to the blind, the lame, the beggars, the lepers, the prostitutes, to the tax collectors, right? You got the outcast, those on the fringes of society, the disenchanted. He also reached out to your average Jews, right? The fishermen, shepherds, farmers, merchants, so on and so forth. and also to the Jewish leaders, right? You got aristocrats, priests, teachers of the law. Jesus reached out to people across all levels. That was his heart. But here in Acts, before he went up to heaven, he was like, I want you to take this beyond just here. Go to Samaria. Go to the ends of the earth. Right? That was his vision. For the church to basically reach all, right? For all to be able to come together at the table as equals, as God's children, one family. A community of believers. That's really what this series is about, right? So I'll bring all of us together. It's about hospitality. So today, the Samaritans. And because, you got Philip who went to Samaria. He was like, I should go and preach. He does preach. And many people believed because of his, being there. And then they also sent Peter and John just to go, is this happening? Samaritans becoming Christians, right? That was kind of, a new thing for them. So, but I think the harvest was ripe because the seed Jesus planted back in John chapter 4. So if you're with me, turn to John chapter 4. So we're going to skip a beat back in time. John chapter 4, verses 1 through 9. It says, now Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that he was gaining and baptizing more disciples than John, although in fact it was not Jesus who baptized, but his disciples. So he left Judea, went back once more to Galilee. Now he had to go through Samaria. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down at the well. It was about noon. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, will you give me a drink? His disciples had gone to town to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, you are a Jew. I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. Okay, the next slide should have another map. And so if you take a look at that, again, Judea, Samaria to the north, and any Jews in Jesus' day, because they disdained Samaritans so much that would just divide. And this actually began back in 1,000 years before. 931 BC, the Israelites, they had a civil war, split north and south. North was the kingdom of Israel, capital was the city of Samaria, the south was the kingdom of Judah. And that region, if we go to the next slide, you just give us perspective. Okay, you got Israel in the north, Judah in the south. Okay, and so what happened was that the northern kingdom was conquered by the Assyrians around 722 BC, who ended up deporting throughout their empire, right? And then in place, they would bring people from other nations to settle in Samaria, consolidating and regaining power and revolting. So that was their idea. Cultures did back then, they believed that there's a god of the land, right? So in order to not perverted version of Judaism mixed with, she's looking at her physical needs. Well, give me the, Mount Gerizim was built in 450 BC. Fast forward a couple hundred years later, during kind of like the post-Greek or the Greek Empire and Alexander the Great, the Jews had won a brief period of independence. And around 110 BC, they went to Samaria, destroyed the no longer consider them family. Sad, right? What is wrong with you? And I'm kind of sensitive to that. My wife can tell you. So just a little bit about me, right? I'm a FOB. If you don't know what that is, it's fresh off the boat. So when the Samaritans came to him, they urged him to stay with them. He stayed 2 days. And because of his words, many more became believers. They said